Good evening, fellow Unuses. Good evening, dear Anuses. And good evening to the people that were smart and picked Norbert Moses or Amy. This whole day has been nothing but a single storm, and even now the rain is gently tapping on my window. It's late at night, and I'm sitting here in my room all alone. And I feel like it's the perfect time for a spooky story. The protagonist of this one is no other than yours truly. That's right, this is a real story that happened to me. And obviously I'm trying to make this sound as scary as possible. But nevertheless, it's real. Now, as I just said, the main character of the story is none other than me, minus a few years. This took place around 2012, maybe 2013. And as some of you may know, I wasn't always the horror fan that I am today. In fact, I was quite scared of a lot of things like zombies, or the dark, or Slender Man. And he is exactly who this story will be about. Now, it's nothing outlandish. I haven't seen him, I haven't had any weird contact. It's actually very plain, very simple, but enough to creep me out to this day. Nowadays, I consider myself lucky being part of the generation that grew up with all these fantastic horror stories and being part of the generation in which creepypasta became an actual thing. And yes, there were many amazing stories, there were many very bad stories, and there were a lot of weird ships. But it would take me around 2 to 3 more years to actually fully get into that, because back at the time when it was new and fresh, I was simply too scared of it to interact. But once you sit in a classroom full of students and everyone talks about that new game, you of course get interested, and so did I. So I sat at the edge, reading my books and listening to what the other kids had to say. And they talked about a game where you had to find 8 pages, and you were haunted by this creature, tall, lanky and faceless, and he was always right behind you, but you couldn't turn around, and you had to press on, knowing he was right there with you, but you weren't allowed to look at him, because looking at him meant death, and he could teleport, appear randomly. You never knew where he would be next. He could be right in front of you, but he was also at every second right behind you, breathing into your neck, just waiting for you to turn around. It was more a test of mental strength than anything. You had to find these 8 pages without giving in to the Slender Man. And of course I listened because I was a curious kid, but I was also terrified of it. So I had a few sleepless nights, made a mental note of never researching anything that had to do with the Slender Man again, and moved on with my life. Now, of course, it would occasionally pop up here and there. You know how it is with topics you try to avoid. You will always see them in your day-to-day life, but whenever I saw them, I quickly, pressed away. I quickly scrolled down on YouTube. I didn't want to see anything like that. The thing you have to know for this story is that here in Germany we have a series for kids that comes on every night of the week at the same time, and it is somewhat of a tradition, or just somewhat of a normal occurrence even, that kids would watch these and then go to bed afterwards. And every weekend after this series there would be another block of news, but for children. So if you don't want to have your children hear about all the terrible happenings in the world, but still wanted them to be informed, that's what they would watch. And at the end of every episode there would be a short clip of funny animals or something with a funny commentary, basically like a few memes before bed. And one night I had a dream that I was watching this age-appropriate news show. I remember that everything was dark and I was alone, which was weird because usually my dad would be somewhere on his computer, my mom rarely went out, and even if she would have, my sister would still be around somewhere. But, well, it was a dream, so I didn't think too much of it. So I sat there in the dark, eyes glued to the TV, watching the news. And I don't remember what the news were, but that's not important. The important part happened during the funny clip of the night, because the TV fell silent. And then I saw a dark forest and white static, and I heard a song, and translated, Some of these lyrics were, "He had no face. He likes little children, and he likes the way they scream. I woke up in cold sweat and didn't sleep a lot afterwards." Then, 2 or 3 years later, around 2015, when I was getting into creepypasta, I found this song.
He has no face. He hides with the trees. He loves little children when they beg and scream. Please.
It was the same melody, the same lyrics, even the same voice. And I tried to tell myself that I must have heard it somewhere, that somebody must have played it while I was near and my subconscious picked it up. Maybe just somebody listened to it on the way from class to class. But I know that back then I made the conscious effort to stay as far away from all things regarding Slender Man as I could. And still, the song was there in my mind, in my dream, word for word. Good night.